So I told Jason, yeah, I'll take the job with one condition. There's one thing you have to do, and that's paint the building. And I wish that story was true so much, but it's not. Man, it's good to be here. The building looks good. You guys look good. We got a long weekend. I think it's going to be a good morning. So I'm just going to pray, get us going here, even though he just prayed. I wasn't expecting that, so. Father, I just pray that you have your way this morning, that you just open up hearts to receive this message, that you help me deliver it, and just that you touch lives. Amen. You're looking at me and thinking, I thought this guy was from Australia. Where's the accent? I'm sorry to disappoint. There's no accent. Not even a good interpretation of one. You're thinking, oh, no, but you met your wife down there. Okay, she's the one with the accent. No, she's from Ohio. So, again, sorry to disappoint. But as Jason said, 4 years ago, I was up here. They were sending me off to Australia for Bible college, and overall amazing experience. Loved it. Grew in a ton of ways, and the culture down there is just fun. The people are amazing. But hands down, the best part was meeting my lovely wife, Kaylin. So that's us on the wedding day. So we got married in November, and in Australia, that's the springtime. And so now coming back to the States, our anniversary is now in the fall. So that's weird. And I just put that out there to make you jealous because that's where I lived. So, but we visited in March when you guys were wrapping up the fundraiser for what's now our building. How good is that? And Jason, he's been telling me all about the momentum that's been building off of that. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I truly think revival is in the air. And I think this community, is on the cusp of something we haven't seen and something new. And I am just ready for that season. We're excited to be here, and Jason, I just want to thank you for even just trusting me enough to offer me the job. I think you're crazy, but let's do this thing. And if it's all right with you, I want to talk this morning a little bit about momentum. I have found it in trying to find momentum and trying to pick up momentum in any area of life. If you want to use the metaphor of a walk with God. We talk about walking with God. I don't know where we're going, but we're walking, we're moving, we're trying to pick up pace, pick up speed. In the walk of life, I have found that the pebble in your shoe will do far more damage to your walk than the boulder in your path. Now, there's no comparison which is bigger, the pebble or the boulder, but it's not about the size. It's not about the size of the obstacle. It's where it's located. There's no, sorry. And that's why I want to talk about momentum. And momentum, it starts in here. And that's why so much of what God has to say has to do with the heart, because at the end of the day, momentum, if we try to run or scale or tackle the challenges of life that are before all of us in different ways, and we still have little things going on the inside that have stopped and slowed us down, how many of you realize a simple walk hurts, but you can run up a hill if you are pebble-free, so to speak. And Jesus, he told many stories, and most of them were agricultural in nature, because that was the language of the day and people related. And the one he said that was the most important, that if you don't get this one, you won't get any of them, was the parable of the seed and the sower. It's in Matthew 13. It says, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plant was scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plant. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 160, 30 times what was sown. So a man scattered seed on 4 different soils, and the 4 different soils are the 4 different conditions of a heart. Right now, everyone listening, we fall into one of these 4 categories. And the first one is pavement, which is basically rock solid, impossible to get anything through. You can have the best preacher, the perfect message, the best song, but really nothing will take because even the best seed will bounce on pavement. Nothing will take if a heart is really that rock hard. And I don't believe anyone here is in that space, or else you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be leaning in. And then the next one, which is obviously better but still not great, is called rocky ground, where the seed something happened right away. It says, the Bible says immediately the root went in, but it lacked the depth. There was no depth to allow what God was saying to actually take root enough to grow. Then we go into the third one, and the third one is the one that really fascinates me. The third soil, I believe, is good soil, but it's called thorny ground. And the story with the third soil is it's good soil. It's getting progressively better, and it's rich enough that the seed goes in, the plant begins to grow, and we'll come back to this. And then the fourth soil is the good one. It produces a crop 30, 60, 100 times what was sown. This one, it's awesome. Now, there's a little discrepancy between the third and the fourth soil, and Jesus, he actually explains this parable, which he doesn't do for many of them. I think it's because he didn't want to leave it up to us to get it wrong. And so in Matthew 13, 22 to 23, says, the seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, 30 times what was sown. So let's just, for a second, third soil is good soil. Fourth soil is good soil. So why does the fourth one get to 30, 60, and 100, and this one doesn't? Because the problem with the third soil is not the soil, because the soil is good, the seed is working, the plant is growing. So the problem with the third soil is not what's growing, it's what else is growing. Thorns are growing in the same patch. How many of you realize thorns and weeds probably grow better in good soil? Which is interesting, because you can have a soft heart toward God, and a soft heart that's what brings, fruit in life. A soft heart can be easily offended, and thorns can grow in a soft heart too. So in essence, when you really get to the bottom of it, the difference between the third soil and the fourth soil is gardening. This is thorn-free soil, but the soil is the same. The principle of gardening, of saying, God, whatever this is that's coming to my heart, I'm getting rid of it, I'm getting rid of it, so that it won't choke the good and the God that's growing in me. Okay, gardening is the difference. It's only the gardeners right now who are enjoying this message. I hate gardening. I love gardeners. No, I actually did a lot of gardening in my last job, and I'm thankful gardening isn't something people like to do, because it meant I had a job. And so for that, I love gardening, but I hate gardening. So it's a weird relationship. I don't know about what you do with agriculture in your own house, but when it comes to your heart, gardening is essential. Everyone say, gardening is good. Gardening is good. Look to the neighbor you prefer and say, gardening is good. Now, we know Proverbs 4 says, guard your heart, for out of it flow the issues. Now, that word guard, I used to think it meant, okay, put a soldier in front of your heart, and that's it. Nope, that's it. No one's getting through. But that's not what guard means. That's not a guarded heart. That's an isolated heart. That's not what it means to guard your heart. Or, we put up fences, but, they're really walls, isolate people. That's not what it means to guard your heart. That's a lonely heart. And so that word guard, it actually, in the Hebrew, it means to tend. Another word for tend is garden. So that verse, which we've all known and heard in church life, actually means to tend your heart or garden your heart. So third soil, remove the things, tend your heart so that what is sown can grow to 30, 60, and 100-fold. Tend that which is going on. Gardening is good. And then Jesus tells another parable straight on the back of that. In Matthew 13, 24 to 30, it's another agricultural parable. It says, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares, T-A-R-E-S, tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, an enemy has done this. The servant said to him, do you want us to go and do some gardening? But he said, no, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow until the harvest, and at the time of harvest I will tell the reapers, first gather together the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. If you're confused, it means you've been listening. Everyone say, gardening is bad. I don't know. So in the first parable, gardening is the difference between coming to church every week and seeing no fruit because thorns are killing what God is doing, and 30, 60, and 100-fold. And yet, literally in the next verse, he tells a parable where gardening is prohibited. You know, the servants are like, shouldn't we do some gardening? You know, get rid of this enemy stuff? He says, no. Well, here's the point. Apparently, gardening is vital, but we need to know the difference between the tares in our life and the thorns in our life. Because we're meant to be ruthless with the tares, or with thorns, but leave the tares alone. But how do we know what a thorn is and what a tear is? What's the essential difference? Because we need to know the difference, because we need to treat them totally differently. Tares are the people. Tares are the people who appear in our life. Thorns are the issues which appear in our heart. Leave the tear alone, but make sure we deal with the thorn. The tares are what people do to you. The thorns are the effect of that inside you. Leave the tear alone. Deal with the thorn. The tear grows around you. The thorn grows in you. The tear is not my responsibility. The thorn is. The tears is the seen thing in my life because, the tear is the seen thing in my life, and the thorns are often the unseen things because they're internal. Because they're internal, we tend to not want to deal with that and deal with the seen things. And the tears are ultimately not apparently the problem. If it still sounds a little theoretical, it's about to get real, so buckle up and receive this. No nudging, no winking, no glaring, no accusing. Here we go. The tear is the family member. I didn't say which one. The family member who hurt you with their outburst. The thorn is the unforgiveness growing in your heart every time you see them. The tear won't kill you, but the thorn, that unforgiveness will. The tear is the work colleague whose behavior constantly undermines you. The thorn is the resentment you have every time you go into the office. That thorn will kill you. That resentment will kill you. The tear won't. The tear is the guy who burgled your house. And the thorn is now the fact that you have fear every time you leave the house. And that fear over time will kill you more than the one-off incident. The tear is this big decision you have to make that's hanging in the balance. And the thorn is the anxiety robbing your sleep because you don't know which way to go. That anxiety will rob you in the long run far more than the decision you make. The tear is the friend who badmouthed you behind your back. The thorn is now the lack of trust that's crept into your friendships. The tear is the church member from the last church who spoke abusively with you. The thorn is now the cynical view of church-going Christians that is now your norm. The tear might be the sick person you prayed for because someone talked about healing, but they didn't get healed. In fact, they got worse, they died. The thorn is now the unbelief and the reluctance to ever pray for the sick again because of what happened. The tear is the spouse who doesn't understand the load you carry. The thorn is now the internal determination to not share your heart as a result. And that thorn will kill your marriage, not the tear. The tear is the leader who handled your situation badly. And the thorn is now the resistance you have toward leadership. This actually happened to me. I remember a season in college where I was gunning and I was really working hard, and one of the top guys, he would defer to other students, and he would give credit to other people when it was my team that did the thing. It was weird. And everything worked out. I weathered that season, ended on a good note. But what I don't tell people is that for the next 6 months, I walked around angry and bitter toward leadership. Why? Because I dealt with the tear, but if you don't deal with the thorn, it will ultimately kill our journey. The tear can be the lack of hardship you've had in your life, and the thorn is now the lack of hunger you have. And that lack of hunger will kill you far more than the lack of hardship you've had. The tear is the person who left you, but the thorn is the joy that left you. The tear can leave, but if the joy leaves, the joy of the Lord is your strength. The tear is the season you went through. The thorn is the pain that went through you. There's plenty of examples. We can keep on going, but we'll stop there. Now, before everybody gets depressed, gee, great way to start the new job. Here's the point. The devil has one simple strategy. Divert our attention from the thorn and get mad at the tear. You bad tear, you horrible tear, how dare you? And we get so tear-centric, we put all of our attention on the tear. We talk about the tear. We pray for the tear. How many of you realize at the end of the day, we can get all the tears gone, we can change tears, we can trade tears, but you can still accumulate thorns. And that's why you can leave job, you can leave relationship, you can leave church, you can leave situation. You can just run from the tear that's affecting you. But because the thorn isn't dealt with, we have a baggage of thorns we're walking around with, and the devil's going, keep changing, keep doing whatever you're doing, because the pebbles in our shoe are gathering up. And so the smallest hurdles, having that simple conversation, going to church, asking for help, all feel like the biggest hurdles, because when you're walking around with pebbles in your shoe, it's not easy. It hurts. And by now I know you're thinking, man, I have a terrible life. I got tears all around me, family, work, church, everybody. But, before you get too sad about your life, thinking about the tears, everyone's making mental lists right now of all the tears. Just remember, you are a tear on someone else's list. Yeah, that's right. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. That'll be all. No, now listen, I'm not being harsh. I'm not talking about tear as an eternity. Just for a second, bear with me. Look, we're all wheat some moments, tear some other moments, wheat one day, tear on the next, right? Anyone? Is it just me? We're wheat with a little bit of tear with a little bit of wheat. Either way, we all have moments. We can be wheat in the service and tear in the foyer. When you dated them, they were wheat. No nudging, remember, just whole sermon, just look straight ahead. Or when you interview people, always wheat show up for the interviews. Oh, I'm perfect. I'm awesome. Do you have any weaknesses? Yeah, my attention to detail is so high. I tend to get things right too often. It's always wheat in the interview. And we all have this. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's not, the tear's not the issue. The result of the tear often is the issue. And God says, leave the tares alone. Why? Even the servants, they go, shouldn't we do something, do some gardening? He says, no, leave the tear alone. And it's not that he's endorsing the tear, endorsing the situation, because God, he allows in his wisdom what he could prevent by his power, but he allows the free will of life in a broken world to continue. And here's why. Because he's after the thorns that are affecting 30, 60, and 100-fold. That's his focus. Because he has more for you. He has momentum for you. He has more for you guys. And momentum, it starts in here, but it can't start unless we're thorn-free, until we start to deal with the thorns. And so why does he say leave the tear alone? Because no tear in your life can rob your destiny. Look at Joseph. Joseph has a terrible family. You think your family's bad. They sell him into slavery. It's a bad family. Then he goes and works for Potiphar, terrible boss. Potiphar's wife, she's a tear. She literally tears his clothes because she's trying to, she's literally a tear. And then he goes to prison. His prison mates are tears. They forget about him, but he still ends up going from the prison to the palace. Why? Because he's a man with God's heart on him. And all the tears in his life could not, would not, and did not stop his destiny, and they could not and will not stop your destiny either. Look at David. Take David, the shepherd boy. They have Israel Idol or whatever it is, and he's left out of the auditions, and the brothers are lined up, and Samuel's like, no, it's not him. It's not him. There's another one. Finally finds him with the sheep. It's a terrible dad. It's a terrible family. He could blame his boss. His boss said, you think your boss is bad. His boss threw spears at him. And I'm not talking like 2019 emotional spears, like, oh, no, real spears. His boss is a tear. His dad's a tear. His wife doesn't like his dancing style. That's terrible. He's got tares all around him, and yet he becomes known as the man after God's own heart. He says, it doesn't matter about the tares. He said, what is David known for? Search my heart, O God. See if there's any wicked way in me. That's a man who says, God, I want to live thorn-free. Regardless of all the situations, the people, they're not going to get in my way. They will not change my future. And the challenge is not to ignore the thorn. See, the enemy's plan, it's very simple. He's mad today because now you're just aware. Because you've gotten mad at the tear. You've been dealing with the tear. And all the while, the thorn's gone unchecked. Judas, be careful. There's a thorn growing. It's called greed, Judas. And if you don't deal with that, it's going to kill you eventually. James, John, watch out. There's a thorn growing. It's called I'm awesome. And it's all about me. And so Jesus, he stops in Luke 9 and does a little bit of gardening, pulls it out. And they're like, oh, self-corrected. And so here's the thing. How do we know where the issue is? How do we know? I don't know if you know this, but for a large portion of my life, I had crippling anxiety when it came to being a large distance away from my family. You can ask them. It was bad. Mom's here, Dad's here, Tony's here. They know. And so naturally, God called me to Bible college in Australia, just about the furthest point on the planet from Seattle, Washington. And I had dealt with the tears, the funds, the passport, the visas, people saying you shouldn't go, or the guilt of leaving, family, work, and church. So I dealt with the thorns, but I hadn't dealt with the issue that was really there. And in the first few months, I could feel it. I was fearful. I was inclusive. I wasn't being myself. Until one day, I heard a message, and the man preaching, he said, what baggage do you need to leave at the door in order for God to have what he has planned in this service? So what thorns are choking the growth God wants to see in you? In that moment, I prayed this prayer. I said, God, take this thing that's getting in the way. I want to experience this journey that you've called me to. And in that moment, it was as if something physically lifted off me. And once the thorn was gone, 30, 60, and 100-fold came. I saw growth. I saw momentum. I saw maturity. I understood, okay, this is why you're bringing me here. Now, I'm not saying, live with the tear. If there's oppressive hardship, get away from that. But what I'm saying is make sure that we're dealing with the issue and checking our heart like David, saying, create in me a clean heart, oh God. And I've noticed once that actually starts to happen, that we can actually use the tears to shed light on the thorns. In that same season where I was experiencing 30, 60, and 100-fold, there were still tears. Maybe I felt like I wasn't getting the recognition I thought, or I wasn't getting the opportunities, or, I was disgruntled with the leader. But the tears actually started to shed light on the thorns. I could see it. I was aware of it. I could fight it. Because the issue was my insecurities. The issue was my ego, not always just my leader. Your attitude, it can keep the person away, but it won't keep the hatred away. And that hatred over time, I'm telling you, if that goes unchecked, it'll kill you. And I'll close with this. I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of outdoors work, and I worked at this property, beautiful gardens, nice lawn, and up the front driveway, there was this little strip of grass, and there was trees that hung over the grass, and so it never got enough sunlight. It was a big headache. And so I suggested, hey, why don't we put in fake grass up the driveway? Because fake grass is easy. Fake grass can live detached. Fake Christians can live detached from God. And we can come to church, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going so fake. Hey, how's life? Oh, marriage could not be fake. Fake. And here's why, because fake grass is easy. Like I said, it can live detached. And fake grass is fine, but fake hearts, fake people, it's not good. And when I would do a little bit of gardening every day, it never seemed like I had these big projects to do. But if I would skip a day, if I would skip a week, I'd come back and what has happened? And it would take so much work just to get it back to what it was. And it's the same way with our hearts. If we do a little bit of gardening daily, it's a lot less traumatic. Simple surrender daily beats intense exorcism annually. And here's the thing, and I'm going to invite the band up at this time. So you guys just make your way, whatever. John 15:1, Jesus says, I am the vine, and my Father is the gardener. Jesus says, I'm the vine, I'm the life source, and my Father is the gardener. We have a divine gardener. And if we would just stay, and when we stay plugged into the vine, it's like supernatural anesthetic. And God, he's not a butcher, he's a surgeon. And when he starts cutting, when he starts pruning, what he's really saying is, give me full access. Because he said, I'll remove the thorns that you couldn't even remove yourself. You've tried counseling, you've tried time, you've tried change, you've tried everything. Just give me a chance. See, it's the humility that says, God, have your way in this place. And right now, I'm actually believing that God wants to do some work right now. He wants to do some pruning. He wants to do some cutting away. He wants you to give over a little bit of that control. So bring your focus into this place where you can say, God, have your way in this moment. Be the gardener. And if we do a little bit of that every day over the next few weeks, I think we'll start to see some change. I think those hurdles that look so big will start to get a little smaller. And what's changed? Not the tares, but the thorns. Jesus, he wore a crown of thorns so that you and I wouldn't have to. He tied our growth to the tares around us, and we had some fun with that, but he never intended you to live with thorns because he carried them.